Sending songs underground from land to the sea. He lifts up their head and gazes across and says, I see you, see you, see you right now. See you, see you right now. I
My daughter did tell me I mustn't say anything controversial. Well, this is my favorite spot, so I like sitting in the garden.
Oh, good.
So
Oh,
I-
good.
I-
So you're relaxed.
I'm completely relaxed. This
Oh,
is where I sit, I
wonderful.
grab it. I've been sitting here every day with a novel.
Really?
I get to take a 30-minute break. I sit out here with a novel and I read.
Oh, that's
And I
so
eat.
nice.
I
Oh,
have
that's
lunch.
lovely.
Because then I get the sun, this afternoon sun shines down
Yes.
onto this patch of grass.
Yeah. Oh, so you're happy.
So this is, yeah, I'm completely comfortable. This is my spot.
I think I should say though that we know each other because we've done karate for many years together. That's how we know each other, and Sean for me has been one of the kindest people in my karate journey, who really looked after me in the beginning, and always very, just I'm very grateful to him for all his, I don't know, you're just very kind and just looks out for me, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. What a way to start.
I think I should say though that
So this was
we
Sean's
know each
response
other because we've
to
done
a
karate
question
for
as
many
to
years
how
together.
he
That's how we
knew
know each
me.
other. And
Yeah, I guess I could explain, I would explain you, Kim, in the same way that I would explain it to my family. So I met Kim when she decided to join karate. So I had already been doing karate for a few years, and then Kim came along and joined a karate class. And she was probably the worst karate student that I had ever seen. She just couldn't do anything right. But she also had a lot of tension about doing things right. So there was just way too much tension in her body for her to ever learn to do anything right. And I felt deeply for her because I have the same challenges in that too much tension and I can't learn. So I started chatting to Kim after class and giving her the occasional hint and trying to help her to relax and trying to give her things. And then we started training together. And we used to have a ritual of training together on a Sunday morning in the park, outdoors in the park. It was beautiful.
yeah, it was.
And but the one thing I learned over many years is that she might have struggled at the beginning, but she was not fragile, she was not delicate, and she was not a quitter. I don't think I've ever seen anybody as resolute and as determined as Kim ever. She just kept going at it. She just kept going at it regardless of all kinds of adversity, which included, I think, a blue eye at some point and broken toes
And ribs.
and yeah, she just kept on going at it regardless, and she got better and better and better and better, and it clicked, and now she lives and breathes the discipline of karate. She's a martial artist, besides all of that, besides all of that determination, she's also a really, really nice person. Very good friend to get to know.
That's very Thank you so much, Sean. I'm so grateful. And yeah, I. So I just thought that you were a great person to interview, um, because you see yourself as a teacher. I know you do.
Mm.
And so the way you speak, I feel really conveys. You're very good at conveying information. So that's another reason why I asked you. But maybe you could just tell me, because I somehow thought I knew you, but then I realized I don't really know you that well in terms of the details of what you've done. You were the South African volleyball coach for one thing,
Mm.
and your other many degrees, scary degrees, many of them. Maybe you could tell us what they are.
Sure thing. Okay, so the, I'll run through them quickly though. So I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Cape Town, Bachelor of
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
My major was in English language and literature.
I always find that so fascinating, because I'm sure, like, during this interview we're going to have. I'm so excited because we could have Shakespeare. We could have. We could have anything.
Yeah, so that was my first degree, and
It's
then
so exciting.
yeah, my second degree was from the State University of New York at Albany,
Yeah.
in the US, and that was a Master of Science in Education specializing in technology.
Wow.
My
Wow.
third degree was from the University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. It was a Master of Arts in Theoretical and Applied Linguistics.
I mean, this.
And then my fourth degree is an Executive MBA from the University of Cape Town Graduate School of Business. And that's it.
That's it. Are you still doing a PhD?
I put it on hold.
Yes.
I put it on hold. It's actually the second time I've started a PhD and put it on hold. But I put it on hold because the PhD requires the research that I would want to do. It requires that I have time, that I'm not working, that I'm not involved, that I don't have another job that keeps me busy on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And I don't have that space in my life, so I can't go ahead and do the research. So after writing the proposal, I decided to just stop because I haven't figured out how to get that time.
Yeah.
I reckon I need about a year of not doing a day job
Right.
to be able to do research.
Okay. So
So-
like a sabbatical almost.
It's like a sabbatical, a paid sabbatical, because I can't afford to.
Yeah. So paid sabbatical. So if you could get someone to agree to fund a year of your research.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that going to be on?
So it's in education. So I'm concerned about education, and I'm concerned about education and the impact of the fourth industrial revolution. To be honest, I mean, so that was what I was concerned about, because I believe that the fourth industrial revolution is inevitable. I mean, we've seen it now with COVID-19. It's accelerated the pace at which we've embraced the technologies available in the fourth industrial revolution. But I also see that I also see the massive social impact of the fourth industrial revolution is that you're going to have increased unemployment, and increased unemployability. So I believe that if we do absolutely nothing in terms of education today, the fourth industrial revolution will simply make the rich even richer and the poor even poorer. And I think the world will not necessarily be a better place because of the better technologies available. So that's my concern. So it is in that space that I wanted to do research. I wanted to look at what we need to do in education today and tomorrow to ensure that we don't destroy the little bit of humanity that we have left in terms of our social fabric. That's it.
I mean, when you say humanity, that is it. I mean, We want to be truly human. We don't want to be, because I mean, if you think of artificial intelligence, and all the technology doesn't always equal humanity.
But I don't think technology is bad. I mean, I work in the
Mm.
technology space.
I know you do.
And
I
I
know
don't
you do.
think technology on its own is bad. It's just that, and I don't. So I just see that in our world today, we're looking at ways we have technologies that are able to replace people in the workplace. You know, so
Yes.
you can have you can automate more and reduce the number of people that you actually pay. But what happens to those people? Those people are discarded. Then you have, in the workplace of the future, you're going to have, if you continually embrace technologies into your world, into your working world, and into your productive world, you're going to end up with a world in which the people who work are the people who can actually manage those technologies. And the people who never learn how to manage those technologies will not really have a place in that world. It's like the old. So Verwoerd spoke about many years ago, 1954. In fact, Verwoerd said that there is no place in the European world for black people beyond certain forms of labor. The
Can't believe he said that.
that is
Shocking.
what he said. And
Absolutely shocking.
the fourth industrial revolution will create an apartheid based on technology and not on race, and that is my concern.
Concerns you. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to throw this in the pot.
Okay.
So I need to sort of get to know you, and I thought I did know you, but I don't really know you so well. So the big thing with my podcasts are about sort of like running us through the transformational moments in your life. And I think particularly for you, growing up with the regime in South Africa, I don't know how that was. I mean, I need education. I need to understand, and then just transformational moments. But I just think I would love to hear about your life.
Shoot, eh? You know, I'm like 58 years old.
I know you're 58 years old. I know you're 58 years old, but I just feel that, obviously where to start. So we could start with, how was it for you growing up? Maybe the transforming moments. So it's not just like random. Because I was on your Facebook page and I read a comment that someone said, you worked for Vodacom, but you were such an activist in your day. They were cross about 5G. So I didn't even know you were an activist in your day. So, I don't know a lot about you actually. I thought I did, but we just did karate together and we loved it. But, so I just thought if you're okay with it and comfortable with like sharing a bit of your life. Yeah.
So 1976 was obviously a big awakening, not just for me, but for I guess all children of my generation. I was 40.
Okay.
1976, I was 40.
Okay.
And it was a big awakening for me and for everybody of my generation. So before that, I was aware of apartheid. I was aware of restrictions. But I kind of lived within that space, So there's a park a couple of blocks from here where the train is.
Okay.
And I remember driving past that park with my parents, and my parents saying that we can't go to that park because that was a whites only park, just down the road.
Terrible.
So I remember that. But 1976 was a big awakening. 1976 was for me quite challenging because it was, for me personally, it was challenging for a lot of people in South Africa. And I was torn between going out into the streets and finding something that would change the world and not knowing whether being out in the streets, marching outside of my school, would actually make a difference. So I found that very challenging. I find so I was torn between the two. But 1976 was kind of the big awakening.
Yeah. Sure.
And I tried to find so 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 so, but I guess from 1976 onwards, I think I thought about the world very differently, and I looked
Really?
for answers in different places.
Really?
Before that, I wasn't really looking for answers. You know, I
Okay.
wasn't
You were just
really,
living your life.
I was just living, yes.
Mm.
Yeah, I was growing up as a kid. After that, I tried to find answers to the questions. You know, did it make sense for me?
Yeah,
You know, because
yeah.
I was also quite religious at the time. I had to
Yes.
think about, did it make sense for me to rebel against the state? Does it make, you know, because
Yeah.
the Bible says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
and I
yeah.
remember 1976. In 1976, a lot of Christians were adopting that position. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, unto God what is God's. And basically, they were saying, okay, dudes, you're Christians, so
So
don't
we'll
fight the
accept
state.
what you say.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so that was a period of some conflict
Yeah.
for me personally.
Yeah.
And so, and then I started to look for answers in other places. So a big part of my awakening, there was an organization back in those days. So now think about it, I'm 14 years
Yes,
old. There was an
yes.
organization based
Yes.
in a little place called Bokmakiri.
Oh.
They used to have meetings in a hall in
Yeah.
Bokmakiri.
Yeah.
And they were called the Cape Flats Cultural Society.
Okay.
And so that organization discussed politics, the situation, the state of the nation, the current situation of South Africa today. And that was in large part, so for a few years I started attending the Cape Flats Cultural Society
Okay.
meetings, and I learned a lot
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
that process.
Yeah.
Because and I got to understand South Africa and apartheid a lot better. And then, of course, 1980, I was in my first year at university.
Right. You were 20.
1980, I was 18.
Oh. Sorry.
First year
Okay.
at
Yes.
varsity.
18.
So 76, I was 14.
Yeah.
1980, first year at varsity was the 80s, 81s, 80s. Those were tumultuous years in South Africa. And the difference between 1976 and 1980 was in 1976 was very much a student uprising, with very little support from the larger community, the parents. The 80s were like entire communities uprising. And in the 80s, I started to get involved in organizations like on the Cape Flats. And I was at university. I was at UCT
Yes.
during my first year of studying.
Yes.
And we had adopted, so people like me who had gone to university had adopted the kind of an approach to university, that the university is simply a place where we get our studies, because university was, for us,
Yeah. What
it
was
was-
it like for you?
it was it was just a further manifestation of apartheid. It was a
Really?
white university
So disappointing.
designed for whites, with and with privileges extended to whites within a larger white political framework and education framework that is designed for whites.
Yeah.
So we effectively adopted the position that we are there simply under protest. We go to the
Yeah.
university. So I
Okay.
applied for a permit to study at the University
Can
of Cape
you
Town.
believe it? I had no idea. I was going to ask that because that was in apartheid, so I didn't quite
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, we had to apply for a
I
permit.
cannot believe it. You had to apply for a permit.
Yes, so you
Shocking.
apply for a permit based on.
Oh, shocking.
So the back in those days, they had universities like the University of Western Cape was
Yeah.
designated a coloured university. So
Yeah.
people like me had to go to the University of Western Cape. And the basis on which you could apply for a permit, so essentially an exemption from being forced to go to the University of
Yes.
Western Cape,
Yes.
was if you were taking a course that was not offered by the University of Western
Okay.
Cape.
Okay.
So I took drama.
Right.
Um, at,
Sure, drama.
I took drama.
I'm sorry, I didn't associate, but yeah,
No, no.
you're amazing. You're so multifaceted.
No, it's
Yeah.
not that. It was purely an
you-
academic course. It was purely an academic course.
Oh, so it wasn't okay.
And I never passed it. I
Okay.
did it. I did drama 1 for 3 years. I did
Oh.
my entire degree in 3 years.
Okay, yes.
But I did drama 1 every year because that entitled me to study at the University of Cape
Oh,
Town.
so it was a clever. So in other words, you did it to be able to, as almost as a protest,
Yes.
to get into the university.
So I did drama.
Shocking.
I did drama 1 for 3 years. So you get 3 years in which to do a degree. So I just carried drama 1 through.
That's very
but I
clever.
finished all the course. I finished the
You finished
requisite number
everything
of
else.
courses.
So you did that on purpose, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Good.
the other course I remember. I know that a lot of people who studied arts like me, who did Bachelor of Arts,
Yeah.
also did cultural history of Western Europe. I'll never forget that. That was the other permanent course.
Cultural history of Western Europe.
That was the other permanent course. And then of course medicine. I never got involved in anything. So I spent 4 years at UCT.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I didn't play. I didn't join any societies. Didn't play any sport. Didn't do anything at UCT because our philosophy was that this is not this is not our community.
Yeah.
Our activities are in the
Yes.
community. So I played my sport in my community.
Right.
I joined organizations in my community. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so I was active in the youth in the civic organizations in my community, and I was active in the youth organizations in the community. I was active in Heideveld, so I lived in Vanguard Estate, which is right next to Heideveld.
Okay.
And I was very active in Heideveld. And in the school, and then when I eventually graduated from
Yes.
UCT,
Yes.
I was active in the schools as well.
Okay.
So that was where my activity was.
Wow.
So at one stage, I guess probably soon after I finished studying my first degree, or while I was studying, I think I was chairman. What was I? Chairman or president of Heideveld Youth Movement.
Okay.
So I was chairman of
Okay.
Heideveld Youth
So
Movement.
you were
at one
really
point. Yeah,
influential in your community and
I
Yeah.
served on the executive of the Heideveld Vanguard Civic Association. So we ran. So if those two organizations in that community
Yeah.
were effectively the arms that ran the campaigns, the national campaigns that were running. So
Yeah.
so running things like campaigns around educating people,
Yes.
knocking on doors, going to
Yes.
people's houses, educating
Yes.
people about the struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boycotts. There was the red meat boycott. There was a
Okay.
Wilson Roundtree's boycott. There was
Okay.
a bus boycott. A lot
Okay.
of those things
Yes.
were happening,
Yes.
and those organizations were kind of the local organizing committees of those, I guess, protests of those protests in our community. So civic organizations, civic associations, and youth organizations were the people that organized largely in the
Okay.
community.
Yes.
Obviously complemented by trade unions in the
Yeah.
workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was and churches,
Yes.
of course, churches,
Yes.
of course, so churches and mosques and whatever, religious organizations. So in the 80s, that
Did it?
struggle brought in all of those different
Okay.
sectors.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
That is, and it's not it's. I always argue that it's not about color. It's not about color. It's about
No.
it's about privilege
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
about wealth and poverty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they don't see that there is a world of poverty, a world of
Yeah.
deprivation,
Yes.
a world of suffering on
Yes.
every single day, where the
Yes.
comforts of life are not available to ordinary people. They don't see that because all they see is this world, and they believe that the world that they're living in, that little bubble that they live in, is the entire world, but it isn't. And everybody else is alien. They don't understand why people cannot accept the comfort that they live in.
Yeah. Yeah. And his history teacher saying he was colorblind and he thought he was great, but he actually inadvertently, because he was trying to be nice to everyone, and there was a lot going on under the surface, and no one, it's it hasn't, these stories haven't been heard, and I just think, and as you say, that thing of being colorblind is not actually true.
Yeah, that's just
Yeah.
being willfully ignorant.
Mm.
That's just being willfully ignorant
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
immense disparities between
Yes.
people,
Yes.
and of the inequities and the social
Yes.
injustice.
Yes.
That's just being willfully
Yeah.
ignorant.
Yeah.
When they just take that person by the scruff of the neck
Yeah.
and slap them.
Yeah. No, but it's yeah, no. I mean, what do you see as like right now with what's going on? I was trying to read your Facebook and try to understand what your stance. I mean, what is your stance? Because I mean, as you say, it's actually about privilege and poverty. Maybe you can talk a bit about that, like how you see it being addressed. I mean, there isn't really a perfectly good solution, but
Sure, I don't have.
I know. Of course you
I
don't.
don't have the
Of course you
solutions.
don't.
I don't have
Yeah,
this
no,
magic wand.
no, I don't either. But it's just,
Look, many years ago, we had our current president and Trevor Manuel. Trevor Manuel was our former Minister of Finance, and our current president went around the country, and they developed a national development plan, the NDP. And the national development plan mapped a vision for this country, and it said, let us improve different parts of our social structure. Let's improve education in these ways. This is the vision that we have for education. This is the vision that we have for work. This is the vision that we have for. So they articulated a vision, and they articulated a journey towards that vision. And I struggle today, and I believe that one of the things that we need in this country is to be able to have a vision that is not just something that is written on paper. Because what actually happened to that national development plan is there was a lot of controversy. There was fighting between the trade unions and the government about whether or not this part was right or that part was right, and there was eventually the government adopted it. But there's in my opinion, just in my view, there's very little evidence of that vision being articulated, becoming part of our day-to-day existence. In my mind, you started by articulating a vision like that, and that vision has to then be knitted into every part of the fabric of our society.
Yeah.
So when children go to school, when children go to primary school, they should be learning about that vision. That vision should become part of what they must be living that dream.
And
High
you're into
school.
education. I mean, sorry, carry on.
So it should be in the workplace. How do you articulate that vision in the workplace?
Yes.
So that when we then see that we're suffering today, we must see the suffering today in relation to the realization of that vision tomorrow. But what we're seeing right now is not that. What we're seeing instead is that it seems so pointless. It seems like the suffering, the massive corruption, the ineptitude in government, the continued growth, the continued growth of that divide between rich and poor. It seems like that just continues, but there seems to be no vision of an end to it. And that's the problem. There is no vision of an end to it. And that national development plan is not perfect. Nobody can come up with a perfect vision, a perfect plan. But you can articulate the vision and then work towards it and say, and everything that you do has to be
related to that vision. You know, so when government passes a law, when they change the constitution, when they do whatever it is that we do, must be a step towards realizing that vision. And we're not seeing that. When you sit in your home, and I sit in my home, or people sit in their homes in Delft and in Khayelitsha or wherever it is, and they see that somebody in a minister of transport or minister of police or minister of whatever stand up and make a pronouncement, they must be able to see that is related to articulating, realizing that vision. And if we don't see, and it must be, and it has to be a non-partisan vision, you know. So when you have you don't, so you have these loud mouths. I mean, John Steenhuisen is a loud mouth. All he does is bitch and moan. He's an annoying bastard. But you know, even a DA or an EFF or an organizations that are opposed, that are
Yes,
currently in
exactly.
opposition, must be able to say, I buy into the larger vision.
As you say, non-partisan.
And then you
It's-
build your state.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
build your state. You build
Yeah.
your structures of government
Yeah.
around delivering that vision. And if they, you know, so people then get measured against whether are you contributing to the vision or not. And if they're not, they must be removed. And that we're missing in this country. So
Yeah.
from a government perspective, that's what we're missing. I believe. And until we get that right, we're just like meandering, we're wandering around almost aimlessly.
Yes. I think the most powerful thing about what you just said is the way I almost imagined a bone being formed, like the way you describe the knitting of the vision. It's so it's actually beautiful, like so ingrained that it's just you're building something that can't be undone.
And everybody
Yeah.
must feel it, must see it, feel it. They must know it. You know and it's small things. In in the USA, for example, children learn the Pledge of Allegiance from like day one at primary school. You know, and so they start their primary school with making the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, so they already committing themselves to a dream of some sort. And that's you know, so what we need in this country is for us to commit ourselves to a dream, and we're not doing that. Anyway, that's
Yeah. So sorry to question you.
So this was written by Sean. There are a few things I do know. I know that I want to live in a South Africa in which the poorest citizens have a quality of life in terms of homes, food, education, healthcare, and opportunity that no one in this country needs to be ashamed of or appalled at. I also know that we need to massively expand our tax base to ensure that the state is empowered through resources to provide a more competent and functioning state. But I protest to myself these are endpoints, not actions to undertake to arrive there. I'm still stuck at the question of what I would do, not wish into existence, if I had the power to change anything. Just looking at the two things I want above, I see challenges of housing and infrastructure, food production, security and affordability, education accessibility and quality, healthcare accessibility and quality, and unemployment. What would I do to address any of these individual and collective challenges? I still don't know, but I know one thing. We have to do it together. We need, as a nation, to sing from the same hymn sheet. We need a vision of ourselves in our future that is inclusive, so it can be part of the air that we breathe and the tasks that we perform on a daily basis, whether we are in government or out. Retirement, old, or just starting school, employed or unemployed, we know it is possible. We saw it in our response to COVID-19. We saw it in our hosting of the 2010 World Cup, in the Springbok victory in Japan last year, in Wade van Niekerk's world record in the 400 meters at the 2016 Olympics. I would like to explore that question with you. What would you do if you were in a position to address any of the problems that beset our country today.
Sorry to press you even further, but like, what would this vision be? What for you? Say you were the president, or you were the. I mean, how would you? What is your vision?
Shoot, look, the most important thing for me is quality of life. You know, so I think that the fundamental principle that should drive that vision is that the quality of life of the poorest of the poor in South Africa should be at a level that is tolerable and humane.
Yes.
It has to be tolerable and humane, regardless of your level of poverty. I don't believe that we're ever going to get to a state where everybody's equal.
Yeah.
Equality is a beautiful vision. It's a beautiful dream, but it's not practicable. But what is practicable, I believe, is a more egalitarian distribution of wealth.
Take us back. So you described your UCT time. So after that, you went teaching. Maybe you can describe any transformational experiences there that affected you fundamentally going forward, or just maybe any anecdotes from your teaching, maybe when you were younger. How old were you? You started like at 22 or something like that.
I started teaching in 1984, so I would have turned 22 in February of 1984.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I was 22 when I started teaching.
Yeah. So you said you weren't just at one school. You were.
I only taught for 3.5 years.
Okay.
I taught for 3.5 years. I was at three different schools in the 3.5 years.
Okay.
So I taught at my old high school for a year.
Wow.
For the first year.
Well, maybe you told me that a while ago, but I didn't actually remember that.
Yeah, I taught at my
That's
old.
special.
It is. The principal, though, was 1984 was also a tumultuous year politically, and the principal didn't like my politics, so he let me go at the end of the year. So I then went to a school in Heideveld.
Okay.
Called Catholic High School, where I taught for 2.25 years.
Okay.
And that was 1985, 1986, and the start of 1987. In 85, 86, 87, 80.
Yes.
I was also involved in we talked a lot about forming a teachers union in 1985, 86. And in 1986, we created an organization called the Western Cape Teachers Union. So teachers on the Cape Flats, created an organization called the Western Cape Teachers Union. So I formed part of that. So I was part of the organizing committee initially. And towards the end of 1986, there were a number of teachers were banned from school premises. So I was one of those.
Okay.
So at the end, so we got a banning order saying that we're not allowed to be on the school premises of any school within the borders of the Republic of South Africa.
What?
So I ended up 1986 no longer allowed to be at school.
Were you completely without a job? Were you not paid even?
No,
Nothing.
I wasn't paid. I was without the job and not paid.
Yo.
So
Hectic.
so then when 1987 started, the students at the school would not go. Students at the schools actually demanded that their teachers be returned.
Really?
So I was allowed back in 1987. I stayed at the school for another till the end of March, because for the first quarter, because I had because when I was unemployed, when I was worried about how I was gonna survive, because of course I now had no job. I was
Yeah.
worried about how I was gonna survive.
Yeah.
I then applied for a scholarship to study abroad,
So clever
and
to think of that.
I don't know, it just came across.
Yeah.
It was serendipity, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was accepted. I was awarded the scholarship,
Wow.
and so I finished off teaching, so that they could replace me at the school
Yeah.
at the end of the first quarter.
yes, because they start in June. Oh.
Yeah, at the end of the first quarter, and
Yeah.
then I had 3 months in which I wasn't doing
Okay.
anything, so I went to
Okay.
teach. I went to fill in for 3 months at another school
Oh. Okay.
before
okay.
I left the country
Okay.
in
Okay.
August. I think I left the country in July or August 1987.
Mm.
So I filled in for another teacher who was away at another school.
Okay. Can I just interject? Like, what at that time you were quite young and you had very high, you were in the height of apartheid. So, like, what did you instill in the teachers, the students that you were teaching at that time? Like, what do you think you were like as a teacher? Like any particular things that come to mind? Otherwise, it's fine. We'll just
Yeah.
move on.
I don't know. I don't know that I don't actually know. I mean, I know that I enjoy teaching,
Yeah, yeah.
and I wanted to create. I know that I enjoy teaching and I enjoy learning,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
wanted to create an environment in which learning was a pleasurable thing, in
Lovely.
large part.
Yes. Yes.
I think, yeah. So if
And
I
that
did
was your
anything-
idea, the enjoyment of learning.
I think so.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think I did much more than that.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did a lot more than that. Yeah. So then you went to the States.
Yeah.
So maybe you could just keep expounding on, like what happened there and what you learned there. Any life-changing moments. And I know you eventually you're going to have to come back to the fact that you were the volleyball coach. I don't know how we're going to get to that, but anyway.
Well, I started playing volleyball. Okay, so let me start. I started playing volleyball in my first year of teaching,
Okay.
and we had, and it was teachers playing against teachers with some students in.
Oh, I see.
So we
it
would
wasn't.
play during. Yeah, we
It
played
was
during
teachers.
breaks.
That's
We
so
played
funny.
during breaks.
That's
Um,
amazing.
We didn't play very well, and we didn't understand the rules very well.
And did you have a netter?
We had a net up
Okay.
in the quad.
In the quad?
In the quad. We had a net up in the quad, and we played.
That's so funny.
And I got to love the sport from knocking around with
I
other
see.
teachers.
I
at
had
break.
no idea.
Yeah, and so the next year,
Yeah.
so the next year, 1985, I then went to look for a club to join. So I joined the
Oh.
volleyball club,
Oh.
and I started playing club volleyball. I was useless.
Wow.
I was useless,
Well,
but
I can't believe you moved. Okay, yes.
I was.
Yeah.
So, you started off by talking about how I helped you at karate.
Oh, I know you were
And
huge.
one of the
huge
reasons
influence.
I had a lot of sympathy for you when you started, because
Do you want to
no,
describe?
because I'm naturally uncoordinated.
Mm.
I struggle to learn new physical skills. So I struggle to learn techniques and new physical skills and execute them properly. And I saw the same problem with you,
With me?
and I knew that you would get it if you just had time. And I also knew that other people who didn't necessarily have the same. There were people that pick up physical things so easily. They learn the skills. It just comes naturally to them.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily understand how other people have difficulty learning these things. So I wanted to help you, because I thought I understood how difficult it was for
Thank
you to get it, because
No, it
you
was.
yeah
very-
because it has to click in.
Yeah.
It's almost like you have to do it over and over badly until eventually it just clicks in and you can do it.
No, you're right.
But it's But
did
peop-
not come naturally.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. Carry on.
But
But
people,
people.
for people for whom it comes naturally, don't necessarily understand that.
Mm,
So that's how I got to play. So when I played volleyball, I spent a huge amount of time on my own training, trying to figure out how the techniques work,
wow.
because it didn't come naturally to me.
Mm.
But that is what helped me to coach other people.
Because
So
you'd work by yourself so
because
much.
I had to figure it out
Yes,
myself. So
yes.
whereas for some people, jumping was a completely natural thing to do.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I had to learn how to move my feet. I had to learn how to move my feet and place my feet
Yeah.
before I take off.
Yes.
So I spent a lot of time
Yeah.
practicing 1, 2, 3
Yes.
jump, 1,
Yes.
2, 3
Oh,
jump.
wow.
Spent a lot of time practicing
Yes.
just those
Yeah.
techniques.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I started, which meant that when I had to teach people, I
Mm.
could teach people, I could break down the techniques into the smallest bits.
Mm.
And I think I've carried that through in every activity that I've had. So
Yeah. Yeah.
karate was exactly the same, by the way.
Was
I
it?
also struggled.
Yeah. No.
I also struggle with
Yeah.
techniques.
Mm.
I also struggle with techniques, and I have to break it down. I often don't get it on in the dojo floor, but I get it at home when I'm completely relaxed and I can figure it out on my own.
Mm.
So that's volleyball, and that's how I became a coach. I became a coach because I'm not a natural athlete. I'm not a natural athlete. I'm a taught athlete. I don't have incredible natural ability, but I have the ability to learn. And then I guess I have the ability to share my learning. So that's how I
Yeah.
became a coach. I became a coach because I understand how hard it is for some. So I can,
Yeah.
I can, I can coach really good players, and I can coach really weak players.
Yes. And I really think one of your qualities, which is a huge quality, is patience. You
Well,
know.
I had to learn to be patient with myself. So it was, so if you as naturally if you lack,
I think it's the same with me.
if you lack athletic ability and you are naturally as uncoordinated as I am, then
Yeah.
you have to learn a lot of patience with
Sure,
yourself.
you have to.
I need to go to the loo.
Yes, yes, yes. And then I can check what's happening. Thank
Okay.
you so much. Thank you. I'm not going to come too close to you. So if you could keep sharing about your volleyball, because it's quite phenomenal that you managed to get to the point where you were the South African volleyball coach.
So, okay, I was, maybe just to clarify, so I was
Okay.
the assistant coach of the
Okay.
national female volleyball team at the
Yes.
All Africa Games.
It's amazing.
So, so volleyball, so I got into volleyball because I liked it, right? So
Yes.
then I played club volleyball
Yeah.
in Heideveld,
Mm.
and we and the back in those days, so sport was organized around communities. So you basically play your sport in your community. You play
Yeah.
your football in your rugby in your community, and your communities support your sport. And volleyball was no different. So we
Yes.
played in that. There's a little sliver of a community between Heideveld and Bangor. It's called Welcome Estate. So we played at the church in Welcome Estate.
Okay.
The church was called St. Teresa's. It's a St. Teresa's Catholic church.
Okay.
So I played for a club that was established at St. Teresa's. That was called Saints. So I played for Saints Volleyball Club. And we practiced at the church. And we got our players from that Heideveld Vanguard community. So largely Heideveld, but that Heideveld Vanguard community was where our players came from initially. And we then, so when I started teaching in Heideveld, I also started playing and coaching at school. So coaching at school. So we had players from the Heideveld community, from my school in Cathkin High School, that I coached, and they then became part of the club, and so we had this symbiotic relationship. The schools feeding the clubs, and there was another school called Heideveld High School, and they fed the club. So it was a community school,
Yeah.
a community club,
Yeah.
and that's how I got involved. So I was a teacher at the school. There was a volleyball team, so I coached the girls and the boys at the volleyball team, and that's where I cut my teeth as coaching. I guess coaching high school kids.
Yeah.
I also started coaching at the women's team,
Yes.
the Saints women's team. Fairly early, I think I started coaching them in 1986,
Okay.
and the reason and the women's team. So I became a women's coach simply because coaching women was very different from coaching men, at least in volleyball and in a team sport. And a lot of men who were very good men's coaches struggle to coach the women. So I then over time I learned how to coach women differently from how I coach men. There were technical things there were some technical things, physical things that you needed to take into consideration, and I guess some affective, emotional things that you needed to take into consideration when you're coaching women. So a very simple example, when I started coaching, when I was playing, we used to play men's volleyball. We used to play a two-man defense.
Yes.
I'll oversimplify it, but
Yeah.
it's somewhat oversimplified.
Okay.
But we used to play a two-man defense and two-man service reception.
Yeah.
And when we tried that with women, it didn't work.
Oh, really?
So with women in Cape Town, South Africa, it didn't work. It does work internationally.
Yeah.
But we tried it with women in Cape Town, South Africa, it didn't work. So what we then created was a three-person serve reception.
Okay.
So while the men played two-person serve reception, the women played three.
Right.
And three people serve reception worked very well for the women.
Okay.
So we developed what they call a rotation, developed a rotation so that you could always have three people receiving serve.
Right.
Because that seemed to be
It
enough for
worked.
women. So you'd
Yeah.
have to, so all of those things, the technical, it's a simple technical thing. The other thing is also, in men's volleyball, we could have flaming rows on the court. You could, you could argue and swear at each other, and you walk off the court and it's done. It's gone. You move on. So in the game you have these and then it's done. You walk off the court and it's done. Women's volleyball didn't work that way. When they have a fight on court, that fight seemed to go on after the game. It simmered. It didn't just resolve itself. So you actually have to manage the team differently. And because everybody has fights, I mean, people don't. It's a very fast game, very fast, high impact,
Yes.
very fast game. So, and you absolutely have to rely on everybody else, So
Yes.
you have to know that the guy behind you is in the right position, so that you
Yes.
can do what you have to do. And
Yeah.
if the guy behind you is not in the right position, you go.
It'll affect you.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah.
So all of those kind of things you need to understand that. And if the guy is not in the right position, if you didn't go up to block when you're supposed to block, and then I get exposed and the ball hits me in the face, those are things that you get upset about. But it seemed like there was different ways of managing the team dynamics. So, and I learned how to manage women. I actually became a better women's coach than I ever was a men's coach, because
This is written by Sean about Vera Michelson. I could not think of anybody else who even came close in terms of the impact they had on my life, so I named no one else. Mike did not live for social justice. She embodied it. She breathed it, went to bed with it, and woke up inspired to fight injustice wherever she found it. When I met her, she was the co-chair of the Capital District Coalition Against Apartheid and Racism. She was a trusted comrade of the ANC and of SWAPO. She loved Cuba and supported the struggle of the Cuban people to free themselves of the yoke American imperialism. She also fought racist and economic injustice on her doorstep as a community activist against police brutality against black people and racist and uncaring government at all levels. She hated Donald Trump. She also loved music, especially jazz, and she loved people and communing with people she loved. Her home became my home. My friends became hers, and her home became a place for all of my friends to feel at home. Mike loved me as though I were her little brother, and she embraced my family, my wife, and daughter as her own when we spent an amazing Christmas and New Year with her in 2008 2009. But it was the complete integrity of her being that made her name spring to mind as a person who contributed significantly to who I am today. And I know these few words cannot do that entirely sufficient justice, but I felt compelled to share my thoughts with you today. Mike died on the 9th of March 2019. In honor of her contribution to social justice in Albany, the street in which she lived has been renamed Vera Michelson Way. Time you went to the States, but the people that have most influenced you in your life, that have made a difference in your life, I'd be interested to hear of them, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah.
The first person that springs to mind is a woman who died last year. So when I went to the US in 1987, as a young South African, 25 years old, went to the US to go and study on scholarship. I'd never been on a plane.
Wow.
I'd never been on a plane, never been out of the country, obviously.
Wow.
So it was my first plane flight. My first plane flight was from Cape Town to Buenos Aires.
Yo,
And
what a plane flight! Not to Durban, to Buenos.
yeah.
How do you say it?
Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires.
Yeah, so the first flight was from Cape Town to Buenos Aires, and from Buenos Aires to, we didn't land at JFK, we landed at, at Newark Airport.
That's a weird route.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
Well, back in those days, so
Yeah.
there were I think 97 black South African students on that plane who
Oh,
had all
really?
part of the scholarship program,
Wow.
all received the
Wow.
scholarship.
Wow.
And for most of us, if not all of us, this was the first time on a plane.
Wow.
And it was the most amazing flight
Yo.
because Varig Airlines, I don't even know if they
What?
exist.
What
Varig
airlines? Oh.
I don't even know if they exist anymore.
Okay.
Because now, think of it, now you're on this plane and there's these cabin attendants who come around serving alcohol, copious amounts of alcohol, like big shots. I didn't drink then, I still don't drink.
And that was something I forgot. That's something we must actually bring up.
Yeah, I still don't drink,
That's
but
quite an important thing for me, but I'll come back to it.
yeah, but we had people ordering one glass after another. And by the time we got to Buenos Aires, there were a lot of drunk South Africans on the plane. We were quite a rowdy bunch, but it was a fun trip. Then we went to an orientation. You actually go to an orientation. On the scholarship, we were all taken to Ohio, to Ohio, and we were then went through an orientation program. I think it was about 3 weeks long.
Okay.
And from there we were sent off to our different universities,
Okay,
and I
okay.
went to Albany, New York. So I was studying at SUNY Albany, and
Cool to be in New York.
what's that?
Cool to be in New York.
Not New York City, Albany, New York.
Albany. Oh, sorry.
Albany is
sorry,
the
sorry.
state capital
Oh, okay,
of
sorry,
New York,
sorry,
but
Albany.
it's
Okay, the New York State. Sorry.
York State,
sorry,
yes.
Sorry.
it's about
Yeah.
3 hours north of New York
Okay,
City.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when I went to Albany, there was the university was still closed, and the residence. I had a room and a residence.
Okay.
It was booked for me,
Okay.
but the residence was still closed. The university was still
Oh
closed.
gosh. So what do you do?
So
Yeah.
So what actually happened is I had met some ANC guys in Ohio, and they said we've got a good comrade in Albany,
Oh.
who can take you in. So me and another woman. So the other woman I was going to Albany, to SUNY Albany. She was going to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which is in across the river, very close.
Across the river.
Across the river, yeah. Very close. So
Okay.
the two of us then went to
Okay.
Albany together.
Right.
We needed a place to stay,
Yes.
and they organized for us to stay with
Oh,
this woman, Vera
nice.
Michelson.
Okay.
Um,
Oh.
And so
Yes.
so the two of us then went and
Yes.
stayed with Vera Michelson for the 3 weeks.
Wow.
And after the 3 weeks, my friend Shobna moved to RPI, where she stayed on days. And Vera and I had, I had, when the residences opened, I went to the residence and I looked at this room that they gave me, and it was like a closet there. It was tiny,
Oh
eh?
gosh.
And I said,
Yeah.
no, I'm not staying in this room.
Yeah.
So I resolved to go and look for a place to stay. So I started looking for places to stay, and Vera, Vera, also known as Mike, because she's affectionately known as Mike.
Oh, sweet.
So Mike then, after a while, Mike said to me, look, Sean, I don't like having people stay with me, but we're getting along fine.
Oh, nice.
And if you want to go on a trial basis, you want to stay with me,
Okay.
then you can.
Oh,
We'll
wow.
take it on a trial basis. But if
Okay.
I decide at any time
Yeah,
that
a
it's not
good-
working
that's
out,
a good
then you have to leave.
system. Yes.
And I said,
yes.
fine. I
So
agreed.
she had a proper nice house.
She had an apartment. She had an
Okay,
apartment.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
stayed with Mike, and we had a fantastic
Oh,
relationship.
that's
She was like an older sister.
Oh wow.
What is interesting about Mike is Mike was American,
Okay.
white Jewish woman.
Oh really?
So Mike and I lived together in this house for years. I mean, I was like her little brother, like this little brother that did stupid things.
That's really great.
And so she gave me. I had this room in a house. She gave me this room, and then because I'm from South Africa, I was also quite handy, so I could fix things. So I could fix things. Anything had broken in the house, I could fix. And I built my own bed because the room was quite small.
Did you?
Yeah, the room was quite small, so
Okay.
there wasn't. I didn't think there was enough space for me to live comfortably. So what I did was to build a bed that was like a double bunk without the bottom. If you can imagine, a tall bed, a double bunk without the bottom, so that I could put a desk underneath.
Oh, that's so clever. So you're using the space wisely.
So I slept on the top of. So I built it myself, slept on the top, and then
That's
worked
so
at the bottom.
clever.
And then lived comfortably in the rest of the house. So,
Okay.
which meant I wasn't confined to a little room. The
Yes,
room
yes.
itself was small.
Yeah, but
It
you
was-
had the.
I had the space, the run of the house, yes.
Mm.
And then when Mike decided to buy our own house, move out of an apartment she was renting and buy our own house, I moved with her.
Oh, wonderful.
So then we moved into this house, and the two of us just got along famously.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I built stuff
Yeah.
there in that house as well.
Really?
It's still there. I
Wow.
don't know if it's still there because Mike died last year.
Oh, that's
So-
very sad.
So,
Yeah.
when I went there, though, the things that I built were still there.
Really?
So once again, I had a fairly small room, beautiful little room, but it was
Yes.
quite small.
Yeah.
The American rooms are not big. Often
Oh
are
no,
not
no,
big.
I know. Yeah.
So
big.
the room was
Yeah.
quite small. So I also, and it was at the top of the stairs, so it's difficult to carry a bed
Yeah.
into there.
Yeah.
So I built the bed in the room. I built my own bed in the room, so
That's
that
so clever.
so I didn't have to carry
So
it.
you just built it however big you needed
But that
it
was
to
a
be.
normal bed.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
I built another bed in the basement,
Brilliant.
and I built a room. The basement was quite big; it was the size of the house. So I built a room around the. So I partitioned the basement so that you could actually have a guest room in the basement.
Oh, that's so nice. Sometimes basements are wonderful, as you say, as big as the house.
Yeah, and then I built
Yeah.
like spice racks and stuff. and-
Did you?
Yeah, I like
I
I like
had no
working
idea
with
that
wood.
you were
I like
handy
I like working with wood.
Really?
So I built stuff, and the stuff was still there, and Mike was, besides being wonderful woman who was
Yeah.
generous enough to allow me to stay there with her,
Wonderful.
and I paid, but not
Yes,
much. I mean, it was
yes.
a token amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what was besides that, Mike was also passionate about social justice
Okay.
in South Africa, in Namibia, in
Brilliant.
Cuba, in the USA.
Wow.
She was passionate about
Really,
social justice.
really.
I mean, she she was chairperson of, or co-chair. She was co-chair of something called the Capital District Coalition Against Apartheid and Racism.
Oh, wow.
And she was the consummate organizer. She was a better organizer than
Really?
anybody.
Really?
She organized like
Wow.
anything.
Wow.
I mean, when Mike is remembered as the consummate organizer.
You need someone
And-
like that.
Her integrity was impeccable.
Really impeccable.
Absolutely impeccable.
Wow. Wow.
So we shared a lot of things in common. So we shared it. Look, her experiences were vast. I mean, she had been involved with the Black Panther movement.
Really?
Yeah, she had been involved with the Black Panther
Wow.
movement. She had been involved with Cuba and the liberation of Cuba. She had visited Cuba in spite of the Americans having
Yes,
sanctions against
yes.
Cuba.
She
So
sounds so brave.
She had been involved with something called the Venceramos Brigade,
Yeah.
and she had very strong relations with the ANC at the time in exile in the US, and with SWAPO
Okay.
from Namibia in the US.
Yes.
And so in terms of so I got involved at the student level because I was studying at the student level with an organization affiliated to the CDCAR, the Cape Capital District Coalition called the Student Coalition Against Apartheid and Racism. So, and I got involved with student party, and we often worked together. But if there was anybody who if there was anybody who had the most profound impact on me, it was probably Michelson,
Wow.
more than anybody else.
Wow.
You know, when she died, I
Yeah.
actually went to a memorial service for her in the US.
Did you?
Yes,
How did I not know that? Were you not
I
around
packed up.
then?
I had to renew my passport, so they scheduled I was in communication with the people in the US, and they tried to delay the memorial service as long as possible to allow me to sort out passport and those kind of things, passport and visa. And then I flew to the US and
I'm
spent
so glad that you did that.
a week there.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Just went to New York,
yes.
up to Albany,
Yes.
at the memorial service, back down to New York, and then I came home.
Oh, I'm so glad you did that to honor her memory. You know.
And now I had to.
Yeah. What is wanted for the future, for yourself, and for the bigger picture? I mean, you've covered it mostly, but if there's anything else you want to add, and then I'm sure we can end.
I think that I would love to know that the world that we're leaving to our children is a better place than the world that we are in today.
Definitely.
I mean that's
Yeah.
yeah. I'd like to know. I'd like to know that. I'd like to know that my daughter has a quality of life that she can live with, but that she's also safe, that things like that she's safe, that gender-based violence does not affect her, that discrimination against women in the workplace does not affect her, that discrimination based on race does not affect her. But I don't want her, I want all of that for her, but I don't want it only for her, because if it was only for her, I would feel that we are unfairly privileged. I would want that, yeah, so if there's any one thing I would want is just a better world for our children.
Yeah. No, thank you so very, very much. I'm so grateful. It was such a privilege to get to know you a bit better. Yeah.
Cool.